Welcome to the Mixed Race Belonging podcast, where we explore the intersection of mixed identity and belonging through the lens of somatics and personal and collective liberation to help you heal your belonging wounds and reconnect with your innate wholeness through relationships, new experiences, and activism. I'm your host, Raina LaGrand, an embodiment coach for mixed race people with a background as a trauma therapist, yoga teacher, and health educator. The tools and insights I share with you here are the approach that has not only helped me heal my belonging wound, but also helped me help my mixed race clients do the same. We all need something good to belong to right now. Relationships and spaces where we feel safe, held, seen, heard, and dignified. Thanks for being here, and let's get started with today's show. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and sharing your time with me today. I just wanted to start off by saying that I recorded and scheduled last week's episode on white moms um, before the murder of Alex Preddy in Minneapolis. And while I talk on this podcast a lot about politics and culture, I just wanted to make sure to take a moment to pause and just acknowledge that that happened and acknowledge how that is sitting in all of our bodies and your body. And just to be together in that experience. And, I often record and batch out episodes for my own mental well being. And so I know that even by the time this one posts, there might be new things that have happened. And I think that's very likely given what we're seeing right now, that things ain't over, and it's been like this for years and years and years, generations. But I know it can feel so acute at times, and so just want to pause and acknowledge and send some love your way, send some strength your way, however you're showing up in this moment. And I'll actually talk more toward the end of the episode about why the work I'm doing feels important to me in this moment. You know, Sometimes as a small business owner, I'm like, oh my God, I have to get on and talk about my offering today. I have to, like ask people for money during this time. But I really do think that this is important work. And I also know that there's such a need for the space to be held. And so I keep showing up for those reasons. So, yeah, with that said, we're going to transition over to the episode. And, I know from what I hear from you, many of you, that just these episodes alone have been really helpful for you in making sense of your mixed experience, having me put words to things that maybe have been hard to articulate in the past. And I'm glad if just these podcast episodes have been helpful for you. And there's going to be an invitation to some opportunities to work with me at the end of the episode. So we're getting into different mental traps that distract you from finding belonging. Because when it feels like people don't fully understand you or what you've experienced as a mixed person, it's really hard to feel comfortable and relaxed in social situations or just in your body in general. It doesn't really feel like you have anywhere you can really land. I know that when folks come to me, they're full of questions like, and can I trust this person? How do people read my racial identity? What are people going to say if I identify as Black or Chinese or Persian? It keeps you so hyper vigilant and in your head doing all the mental calculations. You feel like your identity and your mere existence is too complicated for others, and you find yourself self-selecting out of monoracial centered spaces. And worst of all, you feel like you're the only one having this experience. Like, there's just an echo chamber in your mind. And I want to acknowledge that while I'm going to offer solutions for or alternatives to these like mental traps, that also these what's going on in your mind is your mind body's way of trying to keep you safe, of responding to all the ways that you have felt othered, misunderstood, and rejected. And that is so real and so valid and not a flaw at all. So I want us to pause together, and I want to invite you to say to your mind, I see you. I hear you. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. Thank you for all that you do to make sure that I don't let my guard down. I see you. Yeah. I think it's like can be so weird sometimes for my clients at first to talk to themselves. But it's so powerful and healing to just kind of like turn back inward towards ourself and to open the door for a conversation that we've wanted to have for so long with others, and that hopefully we do get to have with others, but that we can find, oh, I can also have this conversation with myself. I can witness my experience. I can validate my experience. Yeah. So, with that knowing, with that appreciation for mind, I want to point out a couple ways that I see folks getting kind of lost in mental traps that keep them from finding belonging. So, the first is that you're really fixated on not feeling understood, which again is valid. There's complexity here. It's not an either or, it's a both and. It's a take the pieces here that work for you and run with them. If you are primarily measuring your belonging based on whether certain people or everyone understands you completely, you might be missing out on meaningful relationships. I don't want you to stay in any relationship where your reality is questioned. And I never, ever want you to bypass your sadness, your grief, your rage about all the places where you've been made to feel like you weren't enough and like you didn't belong. But what I know about our brains is that they sometimes are so good at keeping us safe that they can be so focused on detecting disconnection that it can also obscure your perception of all the good connections in your life or the possibility of connection with people who just don't understand you yet. Your body stays on the defense, ready to slug any danger that comes your way. And I'm not faulting you for this. I've been there. Again, this sensitivity is part of your body's amazing survival system. And sometimes our bodies need help to heal and refocus on the bigger picture to find that space where we can stay open to the right connections. And I'm thinking right now of, there have been times in my life where I have felt so protective of my identity, and I love those parts of me who do that. And I think also since I have done a lot of healing work somatically, I can feel more grounded and held in situations where that like like belonging feels like a little unstable, or where it makes me question if somebody gets me. I have a really dear friend. We have the best discussions whenever they're in town. They don't live where I live. And they were here this fall and they were sharing about their experience dating someone who is mixed. And this person, my friend, is Black, and this person they were dating is mixed. And the person they felt from this person a yearning to claim Blackness and to be in Black spaces, but this person was very like white assumed. And that made my friend uncomfortable because they were like, what the heck? Like, at what point, like at what percentage can you be Black enough to be in these spaces? I feel like, they're wanting to be in this Black centered space, or like be in movement work with Black people. It feels like that it's discounting like my own reality as a Black person who's clearly read as Black. And I felt safe enough with this person and safe enough in my body to just offer little tidbits of perspective to my friend. And in doing that, they actually were like open to like deconstructing their worldview of like race and identity in a way that I think has helped them grow and helped them. They shared a bit about their own experience of feeling protective of their Blackness, because they've had times when they have felt, even though they're clearly read as Black, where they have felt like not Black enough in the right ways. And so obviously this is a friend of mine, and I know that you're going to encounter people who aren't your friends who are like questioning things or not understanding you, and you get to always discern whether it's worth providing them a bit of your experience or educating them or not. But I can say for certain that being more grounded in my body has helped me to navigate those situations with more ease, and to feel like um more just like kind of like hopeful and productive in those spaces, because these mental calculations, the trauma, like it keeps us in our head. And because of that, it takes us out of our body. And our body is such a source, like such a resource for feeling at home in the world, and for feeling our connection to the earth, for really like feeling like our density, our weight on the earth, and that we are here in this moment. And so we must belong. So not feeling like not understood, that is one trap, I think, a potential trap. Another mental trap I see folks fall in is um, being really focused on how they should identify. So if you're somebody who's like, if I just knew how to identify, then I'd feel like I belonged. I'd be able to find belonging because I'd have this identity, or it would just like feel more rock solid in some way. But I think actually, if you're going in circles trying to figure out the right way to identify, you might be stuck there for a while. Because the truth is, there's no singular or perfect way to identify as a mixed person in a world, in a culture where race is a dominant system of categorization. You might look one way phenotypically, but you might have grown up proximate to a different culture. And as I've talked about here on the show, you don't have to identify in just one way. Sometimes I identify as mixed, sometimes I identify as Black, sometimes I identify as multiracial, sometimes I identify as multicultural. Sometimes I talk about all the sort of lineages in me: Scottish, Turkish, Irish, English, German, West African, all of it. I definitely don't wanna minimize that identity can be a doorway into belonging, and belonging can be situational like that, that I am Black, and when I'm with Black people, I feel belonging. But at the end of the day, belonging doesn't entirely depend on how you identify or how you look phenotypically. So I think that there's space here to untangle yourself from all these mental hoops you're jumping through, trying to make yourself make sense, and especially like trying to make yourself make sense to other people. Again, all this like mental work is valid, and it is the impact of like having to be in your head to like, you know, figure out how people are perceiving you and how you should move in different social situations, but it really keeps you out of your body. And the thing is that belonging, at the end of the day, belonging is effective. It is something you feel. It is something you know because you feel it. It's like a click that, oh, I belong here. Somatically, I think it's often described as that feeling of being held. And that feeling of being held becomes this imprint, this core belief about where we belong and where we fit in. And in that sense, it's not just something that happens situationally, it is a somatic and emotional memory that you can take with you everywhere you go. And because of this, then belonging, when we can cultivate that memory, that knowing, that feeling in our body, belonging doesn't depend on feeling like everybody understands you. Belonging doesn't rely on feeling like you absolutely belong in every single space that you are in or every single person you come into contact with. It becomes a feeling that you can reference back to where you do have it, whether that's in your body, in community with other mixed people, in your family, with nature. And that's why I've been describing it as a memory. This feeling of being held, we actually talk about in somatic psychology as part of the relational movement cycle. And that feeling of being held is the relational movement of yield. Now, I mean, it's not really a movement, it's more of a stillness experience. But it is a foundational experience. It's an imprint that is generated in our bodies through our experiences of feeling seen, held, really cared for, not just by our caregivers or our parents, but by our community and by society. It imprints this feeling in our bodies that there is something that has our back, something that is underneath us, that we aren't just floating out here on our own. So, I'm really excited to share with you all that I have a new workshop coming up at the end of the month called the Belonging Blueprint. This is a free 60-minute, really experiential workshop where I'm going to talk about the relational movement cycle and a 3-step somatic strategy that will help you to feel safe and secure in your body and your relationships as a mixed person, even if you've never truly felt held by anyone till now. The Belonging Blueprint workshop is going to take place on Tuesday, February 24th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a live event, but you'll get the replay if you sign up. In that workshop, I'm going to guide you through a practice exploring that relational movement of yield that's going to help you restore your body's blueprint for belonging. Because even if you haven't really felt held, you haven't felt seen, you haven't felt like you've had a strong sense of belonging for most of your life, this capacity is wired in your body. And sometimes we just need healing and support to restore it. This is really such an important resource to have because if you do want to make friends, build community, allow yourself to be more vulnerable in your existing relationships instead of being in self protection mode all the time, then you can build this resource that can hold you through that. And even if you still want to belong racially or culturally through how you identify the words that you use, I think that what you're going to learn in the Belonging Blueprint workshop is going to be like a balm to your belonging blues. You're going to walk away from this workshop feeling like you can feel more comfortable in your body, even if you're the only person in the room who looks like you. You're going to feel more confident to put yourself in new social situations without worrying about how others will read your racial identity. You're going to feel more secure in your relationships without anticipating abandonment all the time. And you're going to be able to initiate friendships without worrying that you'll be rejected once they know the quote unquote real you. And you're going to discover more pathways to belonging that you might not be paying attention to. I cannot wait to share this powerful medicine with you. As I said at the top of the show, this work feels so important right now because as we are resisting white supremacy and state violence, we need to be thinking about what we are trying to replace it with. And to me, that is a culture, a world that does not require violent othering in order to maintain belonging. The more of us can connect to that feeling of being held by our own bodies, by other people, by the ancestors, by the earth, the more support we can provide to each other as a source of like leverage for us to keep pushing for what we know to be right and true. I also think that doing this work really is a response to the way that all of this oppression and trauma lands directly in and on our bodies. Whether it's state violence or shame about your phenotype, our bodies are in deep need of attention and care. And this isn't about just doing something for yourself, it's about doing something for yourself so that you can do for others. And it's about doing that something for yourself in community with other people. That's why this workshop is going to be experiential so that we can really connect with each other in these practices. The link to sign up for the Belonging Blueprint is in the show notes. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Instagram at Mixed Race Belonging or email me, Raina at mixedracebelonging.com. I can't wait to see you there.